Hello, everybody. This is Board Game Chats. I'm Myron.
And I'm Chris. Hello. Welcome to Board Game Chats. Hi, Myron. How you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm really excited.
Yeah. This is going to be a good episode. What are you excited about, though? You've got something else on your mind today.
Yeah, seriously. 3 days ago, Disney released the Disney Dreamlight Valley, and I've been completely hooked. And Anna is actually in Disneyland right now. So I'm asking her to get all of the extra free shit that is available at D23 Expo.
Okay. So what was that? That was Disney Dreamlight Valley?
Yes. Yeah.
That is a weird title.
I believe it's
Dreamlight
it's like
Valley.
it's like they created like I think it's their play for the metaverse.
So it's a game.
One thing I will say, it's a game. So like this game is actually being run like a Disney park. That's my view of it, and it's really amazing. So if you've ever had a Disney experience, download the free avatar maker, because like literally I bought a sweater in the game, which is of course a unique sweater that came out for the game release, and Anna has purchased that fucking sweater that my character that looks a lot like me in the game is actually wearing. Yeah,
the actual
they're
sweater.
leaning very hard into this. The
Anna
actual
has purchased sweater. Wow, that's really
Yes.
cool. So you can look like your avatar rather than your avatar looks like you.
Yes,
I'm fascinated by this.
Yeah, like Disney released an early access game that my wife is buying the sweater that my character is wearing a day after it released.
That's bizarre. Wow, that's very meta. Big. Yeah.
When you play the game, just like when you're walking around the Disney parks, it's actually playing music, like the themes, the leitmotifs, like they went in hard. Pixar is actually on the credits for the game.
Cool.
I'm really excited.
Really interesting. I can hear it. Well, next time we see each other, which is coming up, I will have to check it out with you. You'll have to. I'm not saying I'm going to wear the sweater, but we should get on with the show. So today we have a guest, Joel Bodkin from Featherstone Games. Welcome, Joel.
Thanks so much.
We're really happy to have you on the show. Joel, rather than me tell people what you do, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, I can totally do that.
Yeah.
So my name's Joel Bodkin. I am a designer, illustrator, and publisher, all wrapped under Featherstone Games, which is my board game publishing company. I live in Minneapolis. My day job, I work in product design at Target, and I have for the past 16 years or so. Married, have 2 kids who are an avid playtesting audience for my games,
nice,
which is great.
Nice.
Yeah,
live-in playtesters. That's great.
Exactly.
Well, you know what's funny about that, Joel? Like as we're thinking about like this transition to like the, it's funny, like as a species, we fought super hard to like connect everything and like wire everyone in, and now like after the plague, or like, you know, post-plague season, maybe before the winter coming or whatever, it's like we're like moving back out to the frontier where like people are actually considering like getting larger houses, moving further out, having more children, and even creators of product are growing products now so that you can continue growing products. That's how we got here.
Yeah.
People like on the homestead.
Yeah. We're going back,
and
to
I think I'm digging it.
Yeah.
People are concerned about kids. They're like, kids have lost 2 years of math facts. I'm like, but they know who their father is. They actually know his middle name.
Right.
They know their father's middle name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's been a really interesting shift back to thinking about what our values are versus following a path that someone else laid out in front of us. And I think that that's really fantastic. And it's been one of the reasons that I got into designing board games was because my kids, when I told them I designed product for Target, I didn't really have a good way to tell them how that whole process happened. And so I remember this conversation that I had with my son when he was 3, and I had come home from work, we were sitting down to dinner, and he asked me what I did at work today. And I told him that I had wrapped up all of the designs. We'd gotten blessing on all the concepts that we were sending out, and we were sending them out to vendors for questions to see if they had any feedback or if we could make it easier in some way. And so he looked at me with a little thoughtful 3-year-old look and said, "So you hit the send button to China today?" And I was like, I could see how that like is how you translate what I do in my role. And so I went in and explained it, and I could tell that it wasn't really sticking. And I mean, he was 3 at the time, but he got
Your son is a genius. I love how he put that together.
Yeah. It's like, okay, that's a lot of talking, but there's a big red button, right, Dad?
Yes, exactly. And so, he got really quiet and then looked at me and he said, "Dad, next time I come into work, can I see the button to China? And do you think I could press it?" And I was like, "There's not actually a button, but yes, I can show you how all of that works." And so game design ended up, I had a creative career in product design for a long time, and I worked myself out of the creative part of that. Or the creativity took a different avenue. And so I was missing making things with my hands, doing things with my illustration, and all of the skills that I'd developed, like making products, which is something that I really enjoy. And so I started tinkering with games with him as a way to make that concept real. And he's really math and logic wired. And so games gave us, and he's always been really good at rules too. I remember we were playing Small World when he was like 4.5 or 5, and he found the blank tokens in the box and he pulled them out and said, "What are these?" And I was like, "Well, they're blank tokens so that you can make up your own rules." And he was like, "Cool, can we do that right now?" And in my mind, I'm like, okay, we're going to make the most broken rules ever, and whoever gets that just wins. He actually designed 2 really great rules that fit really well into the ecosystem of Small World without really thinking about it. I was surprised at how well it worked. And so he and I then kind of started down this game design route, because there were games that I wanted to play with him that he was too young to understand conceptually, mainly being Magic the Gathering. I taught him how to play. He had his own deck. He knew how that worked, but he wanted to get into drafting. And so he and I we were trying to booster draft. And so he didn't really understand how that worked, and I didn't have a really great way to explain it to him. I tried with Sushi Go, but it's different in that you reveal it every time.
Right. Can you, sorry to interrupt, can you just explain for our listeners what booster draft is for those who aren't familiar with Magic?
Yeah, of course. So in Magic the Gathering, it's a trading card game. And so you are buying individual packs of boosters to create a deck from. In a booster draft, everyone at the table gets 3 packs. You choose 1 card from the pack after you open it and place it face down. You'll use that to construct your deck, and then you pass those cards to the player to your left. The pack goes around the table until all the cards are gone, and then you open the next pack and it goes to the right. It's they call it a limited environment, but I find it to be a really skill testing format, because you don't know what you're going to get. And so if you're really good at evaluating cards, you can do really well at booster drafting.
So that's when it's all done, the 3 packs that everyone's bought, that's your whole deck. Like that's what you're playing with. And
those are the cards that you have to construct your deck from. You then construct a 40 card deck. So you'll have more cards. You'll end up with more cards than you need. So you can only play the good cards that you're able to get. But yeah, it's a really interesting way to play Magic.
Very cool.
And requires much less investment.
Yes. So I interrupted you. I apologize. No, so your son wanted to get into booster drafting. Yeah. And you had tried Sushi Go, you said?
Yeah, so we tried it once with Magic cards. That didn't go well because he just took every green card in the pack because his deck was green and he wanted to build a green deck. And so then I was trying to get across the idea of how do you take a card with an ultimate plan in mind? How do you start to form a strategy as you go? And Sushi Go is great in a lot of ways, but you reveal the card that you take every time. So all of the players at the table have that information as well as you. And what I was trying to design was what I wanted to teach him with was when you take the cards, you don't reveal them. And so we made up the first version of Winterhaven Woods just as like a really small set collection game, and then started to add rules on as you go. And in Winterhaven Woods, the concept is that you start with a hand of 7 cards and you draft each one, but you leave it face down. So all of that information stays hidden from everyone else at the table. So I was trying to get a little bit better approximation to what that booster draft feeling is.
Cool. So do you think, like, is that why you started game design, was to, introduce gaming concepts and new games to your kids?
Yeah. So there are a couple of reasons why I started game design. One was I miss doing things with my hands, and games from a total product standpoint are this perfect marriage of components. So physical design of components, illustration, packaging, marketing, but then you have the whole user experience when someone opens up the box. So it starts the moment you crack the seal and you open that box. I try and think about the opening the box experience as to the credits to a movie. Opening credits to a TV show or a movie, and then you get to dive in.
That's fascinating.
And
that's really fascinating.
After the opening credits, I don't get to control the experience that you have at the table. Like, you as a player are bringing how you're feeling that day, what you enjoy about games. You are bringing your relationship that you have to every other player at the table, and those interactions with you. And so I am just creating a framework for you to have your own experience.
And so I love how you framed it that way. And like, I'm going to ask a question, but like, I love the fact that you're like talking about the unboxing experience is almost perfect. I wanted to add one thing that I think that people leave out. For example, there's a game that I love, but when I played it on the digital version, there's one thing that the digital product team does. And so I live in the world of digital product every day. And one of the things that they lucked out in is they happened to hire someone that had learning experience, like education experience. And so I do have education experience. So like I say, the other thing that goes into it is learning design, because you can have the best game in the world, but if people can't understand how to play it, like they're going to walk away and like it's going to be horrible. But when you go to unbox a game, brand new, you don't know the game, what's your move? Like that first time you play, what do you play? Well, like what is your goal when you play a game? And that's for you too, Chris, and I'll answer as well. What is your move when you unbox a game and you're playing a game that you don't know anything about, but someone's like, look, you have to try this. Disney just released this. Joel just released this. You know what I'm saying? Like Featherstone Games just dropped this thing. You have to play it. What's your move? That first time you play, what is your experience like? What are you looking for, Joel?
For me, the first time I play any game, I usually want someone else to explain it to me, because inevitably reading through the rule book, I'll skip over some key piece of information. And though I design games, I'm absolutely terrible at explaining games. My younger brother is amazing at learning and explaining a game. But my first move is always think about what is the most interesting or risky choice and make that and see what happens. Every first play is an experiment. And so it's like I go into learning a game for the first time, not really trying to win, because honestly, I don't know enough about the game from just reading the rule book to understand what the path to victory is. And so I just use it as a time to experiment. And so I make all sorts of bonehead moves in a first game just to see, is there something interesting there that in the right circumstance would make a big difference?
I like that. I like that a lot because in the video game world, the first thing I do is go right. I call that testing the borders. So in a video game world, what I do is I go right to the edge of the map and I see what happens if you jump off the cliff or go in the water or drive the car off the mountain, that kind of thing. Like, can I get to that spot that's outside of my little sandbox of playing, kind of thing? That's the first thing I do. With board games, my answer is so boring and dull. The first thing I usually do is count components. I'm a collector as well as a game player. So, and I know that, sometimes games ship, even if it's brand new and shrink, they ship with components that are not always complete. And I like to catch those things early because sometimes it takes a few weeks for you to get your piece shipped from the manufacturer. So that was my first reaction when Myron asked that question. It was like, oh, mine's not fun at all. I count the components. I read the rules. I put it all out and look at all the components. And the other thing is I love punching cardboard. I don't really get really excited about a new deck of cards, like opening the shrink on the cards. It's like they'll sit in there until we're ready to play. But for some reason, if there's cardboard tiles or tokens, I love just punching them out and looking them all, and especially if there's great art. But yeah, that's me.
Yeah. For me, I'm some of Joel. And then like the rest is like the fourth dimension. Like this is why Chris introduces the games for our groups. Or I make sure that other people do. So like when I play a game for the first time, I attach to the theme. If
you attach the what? Theme?
I attach to the theme. Yes.
To the theme attached.
So for example, yes. Particularly if it's a complicated game, because you get 5 minutes to explain the game to me. Even if I really want to listen to everything, I don't. I'll just walk away and come back like, yo, all right, cool, are you ready? So I need enough to get through the first round. And then I try one mechanic at a time. Kind of like, oh, I have a green deck. Let me get all the green cards and let me see if the green cards of this game are balanced. Right. Because if the system is a system I can believe in, I'm a system person, it's the autism for me, then I trust this game now. Okay, all right. So then I trust the game and I try more and more things. I am very resistant to people being like, hey, you should be doing this. I'm like, hey, I just played and I need to know what happens when I do this thing because I'm evaluating the system to see if the system is fair and if the game is safe for me. And then I play. And I'm mostly about the experience. I'm there to have fun with friends. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't care if I win. And that's what my first playthrough is like. I will master one mechanic, and then I will get curious. I will draw some hypotheses, and I will create different experiments for the next time I play if I had a good time. Now, if a game punishes you for showing up and asking questions like why, that's too close to my experience growing up as a neurodivergent person on the planet. And I don't feel those games are safe for me.
Right.
So, for example, Catan.
Okay.
I know this is controversial, but Catan is a game that is very inaccessible for me. And this doesn't judge the game. They're different structure, different folks. But you lose in the first round if you try stuff.
Yeah, there's a definite path. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so that's my first. For you. That's the first game. Yeah, the first game experience. I need to learn.
Yeah, and I'm with you. If the out of the box experience in my first playthrough is punishing, or I feel as though I needed to know what was going on in the very first move that I made during the game,
right,
I'm so much less likely to ever play that game again. And the reason is because my playgroup consists of friends and family, and so. If I'm introducing someone to a game and I know that they have to understand what's going on in the first move of the game to have a good time, that's not a game that I want to play with my friends and family because I want them to continue playing games with me.
Right.
And so I feel like they need to feel as though they're in it and have interesting decisions throughout. I also don't play many player elimination games,
Right.
because of that same reason. Because it's like, it's not really fun, no matter how short the game is,
Right.
to have someone sitting there not doing something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for there are some times that when we do the show and we're talking with people, there are these questions that just like come out, and they're like, I honestly think that we have two questions now that could probably be transition points in the conversation, because whether you are designing games or whether you're living in this community, an amazing community, I think one of the key things that we've found is just about everyone we talk to is becoming open to the idea of breathing some life into games, making a game. And that, I think that's why one of the threads that we've been following is, well, how would you do that? So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I just wanted to get back to something that you said, and I really like the analogy. I like that the idea of unpackaging a new game, unboxing a game is kind of like the movie credits that set up the rest of the movie, right? And we've all been in that's an experience we can all relate to, right? We've all been in the movies where, the text runs across a black screen with some light music in the background, and that sort of, doesn't set up the movie very well. And then you've been in other ones where the movies, explode on the screen and there's exciting music, and then the actors come on and there's a little bit of action, and then the credits come back in. It's an interesting analogy, and I love it in terms of board games because opening a new game is fun. Like, most of us really enjoy that part, that anticipation, that excitement. What I'm wondering, so your company is Featherstone Games. We haven't really talked about the games that you publish, and I want to do that, but let's do that in a minute. What can you tell us about what you do as a publisher to make that credit scene, that unboxing, a little bit more interesting or exciting, or in some way add to the experience of the game?
Yeah, of course. So let's see. For Featherstone Games, the way that I think about it is, I don't have a strong desire to make big box games. So I want to make small box, player friendly games that are entry level games for folks. In the unboxing experience there, I don't anticipate there being a giant amount of components, so that's not really what I'm thinking about. But when I approach it, so on both of my games, and my intent is to continue to do this in the future, I use a magnetic closed box, because you seal a magnetic closed box with a sticker. When you cut the sticker, it's like cutting the ribbon on something. And then you flip it up, and it's like opening a chest. And so then I put artwork on the interior cover of the lid, so that it gives you that feeling of you know, the Star Wars credits feeling of like it unfurls before
it
you.
unfolds. So yeah,
I try and make the artwork and just the like snippet intro on the interior of that lid nice. It's also where I call out folks from the Kickstarter campaign who were like Featherstone Edition backers. So it's a place for me to say thank you as well. So it's beginning credits and end credits kind of all at once. Cool. But then it's like, I put I try and be thoughtful about what artwork I put on the rulebook, so that it all kind of works together. And then when you take out the rulebook, you're presented with the components. They're bound with paper wraps, so you can immediately touch the cards, because one of the things that I personally hate most about unwrapping the shrink wrapped cards is either my fingernails aren't long enough to like actually get it undone. There's not an X-Acto knife handy to slice the wrap, and sometimes even when I do that, I nick the edge of a card.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
I'm like,
or the box, like that corner, like you cut with your nail. Oh,
yeah,
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
that wrinkle, that like in the corners they have it rounded nicely, and you get that one cut that it's actually like several cuts.
Yeah, annoying.
My autism. Yeah. My autistic heart.
Yeah. And so with a paper wrap, it's a much more tactile experience. It's like you're touching the cards immediately.
So my hands are sweating like thinking about like cutting the box. It's,
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Cold and clammy and sweating. It's
There's no feeling worse than getting a new game and being the first one to mess it up.
Yeah.
When you're unboxing it. Like there's
you haven't
no
played
worse
it yet,
feeling
and
than
I've
that.
damaged it. Yeah.
While unboxing, yes.
Yeah. Very, very true.
Yeah. I feel like the only worse feeling than that is getting a game, opening it up, and it being missing components.
Oh,
to your point.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, generally speaking, thankfully, most, if not all, publishers that I've dealt with have been really, really good about sending missing components or anything like that. I don't think I've had a bad experience that has stood out. I love that story. I love the idea that it's like cutting the ribbon and you're unfurling this, credit sequence, and it's kind of like a treasure box, because that's the feeling that we have as board gamers. It's treasure. I love that description, because that's how it feels, right? Lots of times. Yeah.
And then the one piece that I didn't get to is I try and put artwork below the cards as well, because once you take those cards out and you've touched those, you've had that experience, and you look back in the box or when you're putting it away, it's that like last kind of smile moment of, oh, there's cute artwork in the box that actually relates to in the bottom of the box. And I took the time to think through what does that insert look like? What does it add to the game? So
I love it. So why don't we talk about Featherstone? Like when you guys, it's a family business, right? Is it you and your wife and your kids?
Yeah.
Your kids are no longer, you had said earlier, son's really good with math. I just want to point out, he's no longer 4, right?
No. He just
I was like, yo, he got a time machine? Yo, that's what's up. You say he's good with math, but damn.
Yeah, no, he is, Walt is now 13 and my daughter Lily is 10. And they both played different roles. Yeah, so I founded Featherstone Games in 2019. I started designing games before that. We published Open Ocean in 2020, missed the pandemic, and then Winterhaven Woods we published in 2021. Winterhaven Woods was the first game that I designed, but the second one that I published, and then Open Ocean was built off of some of the mechanics in Winterhaven Woods, but it was the first game that I published. From a standpoint of like how everyone else is involved, Walt helps me think through the rules from a fairness standpoint, and he's also really good at picking up and exploiting a broken mechanic. Yeah. Like he's really good at identifying like what that little hook is and leaning into that and like really decimating someone to the point where I'm playtesting a game that I'm going to release in 2023, 2024. And we play it as a 2-player game. There is some player elimination at the moment. When I get eliminated, he will still play the other 5 rounds of the dungeon just to see how much of a score he can rack up while I sit there and watch him. And he takes particular glee in it. And I don't think I've played him yet where he can't knock me out of that instance within the 3rd round. So he picks up on that stuff really quickly. Lily is my super creative, also really, really good at math, but she is my super creative kid who gives me a lot of feedback on the artwork, which is really helpful because especially with Dinositters, which is my upcoming release, drawing baby dinosaurs, there's no better judge of cuteness than a 9-year-old's girl. And she'll bring me like examples. She'll say, Dad, that baby dino does not look really cute. And I'm like, how would you define cuteness? And can you show me? And so she'll go find a bunch of images and say, it's really fun because I could teach her how to critique something and give feedback using myself as a guinea pig. And
Right.
so she'll say, see the way that the eyes are on this, or see how chubby this one is. That's what makes it cute. So it's really fun in that way.
Dude,
that's impressive for a 9-year-old.
Yeah, well, so here's the thing, right? Like, so people, like, that's one of the things people are like, oh, well, man, like the average person will be like, that's impressive for a 9-year-old. And I'm like, that human brain is smarter than every domestic animal that we've ever experienced by the age of 2 years and 1 day.
Yeah.
And from that point, what we've done in the past is we've said, okay, all right, cool. That brain is good enough to memorize a bunch of shit. They'll figure out later. Instead, again, on the homestead, the kids are going to be okay, because kids can be trained to do real jobs that have real impact that makes sense. Because I suspect that's very similar to a neurodivergent person. Children, before they have their executive function, which, by the way, I manage myself like a person in grade 6 or 6th grade. That's what my executive function does. I am motivated by interest only. And if you can motivate a child to be interested in video game design or product design broadly, because there's no single path into product design, even though, except being a product designer for X number of years on a job JD, but no one can tell you how to get in there. This is one of those ways. And I suspect that the children are going to be okay because they're learning from a world-class designer how to design things. Now it's games, but that high-level thinking is going to drive those children to accomplishing more in their lives because they're aware of it.
Yeah.
I think that you bring up a really good point. I even take it so far as it's not just about design. It's really about creative problem solving, because to me, that's all that design is being open enough to ask questions about the experience in a way that leads you to create a new experience. And then it's the creative problem solving of how does that new experience come together. And so my hope in involving them is that they'll be able to apply it to things that they're interested in as well. Because I'm interested in games. We're pushing up against the age where they're less interested in games than I am. And so that's been a really interesting kind of feeling out as a family of how much time do we spend playtesting games that I intend to publish versus how much time do we spend playing games that are family favorites that we love, with the intent of just spending time together having fun. And so that's been a really interesting balance to kind of start to figure out.
Right.
How do you do that? And
it's going to protect those kids too. I was going to say, I'm sorry, Chris. And it's going to protect those kids too, because as the kind of person that was born with the word "why" on my chest, it's going to make them more resilient. Because in the school setting, they're going to be told, well, everyone is doing this. And if you don't do this way and then show the work, because you have to solve it the way I said so, even when the problem's solved, that kind of stuff breaks those kids. I was one of those. And I strongly believe that in 5 or 6 years, people are going to look back and be like, yo, like attaching to both parents and like actually like, all these other things, that was actually way better. Maybe we should like redo this.
Yeah. And with the sort of 10, 11, 12, 13 and up, you're looking at, you're going into different schools, you're making new friends, you're, experiencing new parts of life and finding, I want to be cool. I want to be this. I want to be a good dancer. I want whatever, music. So the things that interested you as a child sort of tend to drop away a little bit for a while. And, it has to be fun. Like if every time we're playing a game, it's dad's playtesting, I'm sure, we've played this a lot, or I don't want to work. Playtesting is work. I mean, it really is. And it takes thought and energy to do that. And when we get together to play games, we want to have fun for the most part. So yeah, it has to be fun for the kids. Do you have any insight on how to do that, or you're just navigating it now and still figuring it out?
I'm just navigating it now and figuring it out. But the observations that I would have is that on Open Ocean, when we play tested it as a family, it was really fun. And it was always, we didn't tire of playtesting that game. Same with Winterhaven Woods. It's been 2 straight years of that started to wear on them. And there was also the fact that, like anything, designing, illustrating, and publishing games takes a lot of time. And so I've had to evaluate how much time do I spend doing that versus doing things that they enjoy and making sure that I'm available for that. And so it's been, that was really kind of the impetus of that conversation of, do we move away from playtesting games quite so much as a family into playtesting or just playing games again more? And or moving to video games. I mean, we all love playing Mario Kart together.
Sure. Or other activities, right? As a family, going swimming and cottaging and whatever.
Oh, completely. Yeah. The new one with Walt is, I'd like to go to the mall and look at sneakers with you, Dad. So we walk around the mall, and then he's like, "And can we go out to dinner?" And I'm like, "Sure, you can pick wherever you want to go to dinner." IKEA food court every time.
Like, really?
Meatballs or hot dogs?
We always get the veggie balls.
Yes.
Okay. Veggie. Yes. Yes. The ball shapes in the sauce. That's really what it is. Because I mean, realistically speaking, they used to put horse in it, right? So like, it's the shape and the In the States, there was a little, So it's just the shape and the gravy and the ice cream. Really, realistically speaking, let's be real. Let's be real.
Looking at sneakers doesn't sound very interesting to me, but
I've learned. I have approached it from the standpoint of it was never something that I was particularly interested in. And I've learned so much about sneaker culture just by being interested with him. Yeah. I think that's always a really interesting opportunity as a parent is as your kids grow and develop interests of their own, like what can you learn about their interests with them? Because, I mean, the reason that I got into designing and publishing games is it's a connection point, and it's always been a connection point for me for meeting new people. I'm not great at making small talk, so it gives me something to do while we're making small talk. And so, there are tons of other ways to do that. And so I've just been trying to explore that a little bit more with my kids, as opposed to like bringing everything back to game design.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, that's a good point. And games is a connection point, like after you've published it, and I've got your game and we teach it to someone else and they teach someone else. All those people are connecting in their own ways as well. So that's a good way to look at it, as it starts off as a connection and continues that way. So you started Featherstone in 2019, did you say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And let's talk about your games before we get into how they are. So you have a game called Open Oceans, another game called Winterhaven Woods, and another one coming out, but it's not available yet, called Dinositters. Is that all of them?
Correct.
Okay. So let's talk about Open Oceans. Open Ocean.
So Open Ocean is a drafting game. It's a drafting and tableau building game. So in it, you are reconstructing a coral reef after a typhoon. So every player starts with a hand of 5 cards. And on the cards are various fish, coral, and then other sea creatures. You're going to take one. And so everybody starts with one tiny starter coral to start their reef. And then you build by making connections with other creatures. So over the course of 3 rounds, people build these big, beautiful reefs because every time you play a card from your hand, it has the chance to attract a card from a shared pool of cards that's out in the middle that represents the ocean. And so the whole premise of the game is making smart combo plays and trying to predict what what the people in front of you are likely going to try and take from the ocean, and estimate whether or not what you want is going to be available by the time it gets around to your turn. But it's quick. It plays in like 25 minutes. One of the things that I love most is when players send me pictures of their reefs, because they all end up looking different. Because there's there's some placement constraints, but not a ton. So you could build a reef that is as long as the table that you're playing on.
Wow.
Or you can build a super compact reef, depending on how you choose to place things.
Interesting. Yeah,
So that's
and the
one.
artwork is beautiful. I've seen pictures of it. It's
you.
really quite nice. That's
Thank
all
you.
done by you, right?
Yep.
With art direction by your daughter.
Exactly.
Fantastic. And
Wow.
yeah, I know. Yeah. Are you looking it up?
The kids are going to be all right.
Yeah.
The kids are going to be all right.
Yeah.
I'm literally putting a post out right now. I'm literally putting a post out on Twitter because this is a really strong theme because we talk about community so much, and this is a development. So here's a question. Have you noticed that adults, including cis males, whether, hetero or whatever, are much safer and more willing to talk about having kids like it is an actual, real, and worthwhile thing during normal conversation? It's normal now.
Yeah. Then 10 or 15 years ago. Is that what you're thinking, Myron?
Then 2 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
I remember
the thing that I noted that the kids are going to be all right. For one, they're actually going to be able to attach to their fathers. In the United States, it is significantly different, Chris. I'm not going to go into details, but I'll just say most kids in the United States, because of reasons, don't actually attach to their fathers.
Right.
And in the case, like if I studied school psychology, and so like a lot of people that I interacted with in there, they had kids with sensory extravagances, like I like to call it, or other things. And first of all, they didn't get to attach to their kids, but like their kids are like, that guy's an asshole. Like, so like I have a switch, good person, bad person, and like I use that for everyone. And like I didn't attach to my father, and so I never had a real like basis for a relationship with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have autism, so like that was kind of like an impossible thing. Like neurotypical people can actually do that, not autistic people. And so it is significant that we are talking about children while we're talking about framing world-class design. Like normal, like that's a significant advancement, I would say.
I would agree. I would say in my day job at Target, I have way more conversations about people's families and their kids than I did pre-pandemic, and it's because we all saw each other's kids. We all it was normal. It wasn't people going into a giant office building having scripted interactions based on kind of the norms there. It was all that was thrown out the window, and we had to develop new norms about what happens when your kids need your attention and you're in the middle of a meeting. Like, both are really important. How do you then prioritize that? And just making space for people to go, like, I mean, the reason that, and save for a desire to make a difference in the world, the reason that anybody works is to support all of the aspirations that they have in life. And one of those aspirations for a lot of people is having kids and raising kids. And I don't know, this hybrid work environment has made it possible to actually enjoy both of those experiences simultaneously. Whereas I feel like it used to feel way more separated and disjointed from one another. At least for me, it did.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, because we've kind of pulled everyone's family life into work, because we have been working from home and, dealing with different challenges at home than we were 3 years ago. Yeah, no, that's actually an interesting observation. Very good, Myron.
Yeah.
Hadn't thought of this.
And I mean, it's that culture. It's like, okay, so like there are a lot of bosses right now that are saying, no, you have to come into the office. And they say, well, the reason is because of culture. And so it's a double-sided, it's a double blind lie. On the one hand, they don't like the way that things are going. So the culture has shifted. So they don't want to have to learn how to deal with figuring out where a person's children are when they log on to that meeting where they fire him when the person's gone at the end of the meeting. Now companies have to think about that.
Yeah, and
that
things
is the
like
problem.
that. Yeah.
That is the problem.
Yeah, it is. So did we cover everything with Open
Bring
Ocean?
us back, Chris.
Yeah, I want to bring us back to board games. It's an interesting conversation, but I want to get us back to that.
Yes.
Open Ocean. Did we cover everything with that?
Yes,
It sounds interesting. It looks beautiful. I don't know if you said how many people it plays, how long it plays.
Yeah, no, sorry, I didn't. It plays 1 to 5. It typically plays after the first game in 25 to 30 minutes. And what I love about it from a player standpoint is I can be sitting at the table with, when we were designing it, my kids were much younger. I could be sitting at the table with my younger brother and my wife and my 2 kids. And the 3 of us adults could be playing an entirely different cutthroat game while the kids were playing their game as well. And they were still, they're still in it. But they're focused more on how their reef comes to life and what it looks like versus how many points exactly it's going to score them. Except for Walt, he was always focused on points. But we can be playing a different game at the same time that we're still playing a game with the kids.
Yeah, that's the mark of a truly good family game, right? It's a game that the kids will enjoy and like playing, but the adults still find interesting choices in it and can still turn it into a competitive thing, or if it is a competitive thing, or a cooperative thing if it is. Right. And the other game is Winterhaven Woods. Can you tell us about that one? I've seen this one more than I've pictures of, and I love the art in this one. I think everything about it is adorable. I think every card could be, like a little mini poster in someone's office or something. Like, they're beautiful.
Thank you. So Winterhaven Woods is another drafting game. It is drafting and set collection. And in that one, you are helping the animals of the woodlands survive the winter. And so you're collecting sets of trees to house prey creatures that need to live in the woods for the winter. You're collecting sets of predators to eat the critters that are left out in someone's meadow. So that the predators will score you points. Again, it happens over 3 rounds. It is drafting, but as opposed to revealing the card each round, you draft everything face down, and then you flip them all up at once, and all the action happens simultaneously. So everyone's drafting and then building their woodlands, and then there is a little bit of interaction with steal cards and then eating other people's creatures that they weren't able to house in the woods before moving on to the next draft round. And so after 3 rounds of play, that's it. You count up the points. The person who scored the highest wins. There are multiple paths to victory. One of the most influential kind of thought processes on how I think about designing games is Mark Rosewater, the lead designer for Magic, did a 20 lessons in 20 years as the lead designer for Magic the Gathering. And he did it as it was like a keynote speech for his daughter's class. And so he came in and did it. And I think he did it in 20 minutes as well. It is, you can find it on his Magic the Gathering Drive to Work podcast. And it's just fantastic. And one of the things that he talks about is lenticular design. So having a design that when a new player sees it, they see one thing, and that thing, they understand what it does. But then a more experienced player sees different ways in which they can use that to their advantage beyond what the obvious answer is. And so I try and build little clever things to find into card interactions that some people find, some people don't. And I don't think that it impedes your enjoyment of the game. But yeah.
Because I think a lot of our listeners, I have heard of lenticular design, but was not familiar with it. Can you give us an example? And this might be hard to do sort of on the spot. Can you give us an example in a game that more people would know, like, a common game that might be a good example of that?
Yeah.
SimCity, like the original SimCity, like when it's loading, it says like reticulating splines. Is that a similar mechanic?
No. So reticulating splines, I believe, are a rendering term. But I'm not positive.
See, Joel's an engineer.
Don't quote me on that. But I believe that reticulating splines are how they actually rendered the game. on the original SimCity. But now I'm going to have to research that after we get off.
See, that was an audible, Chris. That's how the magic happens, Chris. That's an audible. Yes. And Joel got it.
I am trying to think of most of my examples that I can think of are from Magic the Gathering, and not from any of the games that are on my wall right now.
That's okay. I put you on the spot. I know that. But the general idea is, if I can summarize it in another way, is kind of what we were talking about with the children's game, a good family game, right? Is, this set of cards, they work together really well, and they do this one thing. But if I can find another card that does this, all of a sudden, this little engine that I built can explode in a whole new way. And, kids can have fun sort of going, okay, blue works with blue and red works with red. But all of a sudden now, as an adult or someone who's a little bit more experienced in the game, they've found a whole new way to exploit how the cards interact. Does that work? Is that?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I was going to say, I can give an example. Yeah, I can give an example from Open Ocean.
Okay.
But I'm not sure how familiar people would be with that.
Yeah. So yeah, we want people to try Open Ocean and get it. But I was just hoping that we had an example. But that's totally fine. That's totally fine. We've explained it. That's all my concern is. Right. I know when I'm listening to a podcast and the guests or the host mention something that I don't really understand. It's like, I don't have time right now to stop what I'm doing while I'm listening and Google that word and that phrase and find an example. So I always try to interrupt and get people to explain things. So Open Ocean was your first game, and you published that in 2020. Mm-hmm. That's that year that will go down in everyone's memory as the, what were we calling the historic times year. So this is your first game, and you've published it in the middle of a worldwide plague and pandemic. What was that like? What?
Honestly, I don't know any different. So I'm hoping that it gets easier eventually. But what it did for me was I had a lot of interestingly restructured time that I could use in different ways. And so it forced me to evaluate how I was spending my time and what else it was that I wanted to do. And so that was kind of the impetus for publishing Open Ocean at that time was I don't know. At the time, it was, I don't know if I'm ever going to have this time again where the world is kind of flipped on its head and people are still trying to figure out new norms. If I can figure out new norms for myself quickly and figure out how to get everything done, I don't know that I'm ever going to get this opportunity again. And so I kind of jumped at that. What made it really, really rewarding was finding the Instagram board game community, because it is just a lovely group of people out there on Instagram posting photos of board games. And I, the way that I approached it was I didn't want to feel like I was selling something. I wanted to feel like I was part of something and that I have skills that I can translate to an experience that other people can experience at their table. And so what I really wanted to do was understand what experiences are people valuing right now and why. And so just got involved in the Instagram board game community, started participating in challenges, started to try and steer my posts away from I'm making a game, look at me. Right. Because there's so many people out there making a game that's been one of the greatest kind of creative connections that I've made through all of this. Is there are so many people out there doing creative work just because they can and because they have an idea that they want to see through. Instagram accounts, podcasts, people designing games, people doing development for games. For most people, it is something they do in addition to a day job. And so for me, that indicates that they're passionate enough about it to dedicate their free time to see it through. And so when you find passionate people, they make really cool stuff. And so all of a sudden I was connected to this whole community of people creating visual content about board games. And I just struck up private conversations with them about how they got into this. Like, what is it that they hope for their channel? What games do their families value most? What gets the most play? And then I just sent copies around the world to people and said, will you play this and tell me what you actually think? And I think I had started it as a print and play first, sending out just a free print and play. I want to say it was probably in February. I was prepping it. No, it was March, April when I sent that out. And then people printed it out and started playing it and posting about it. I was like, wow, okay. And so from there, it's just kind of been organic.
Cool.
I don't do a ton of marketing. The pandemic made it hard to get the attention of game stores because they were dealing with a lot themselves. And so I just kind of stayed out of that because honestly, like they have enough things to worry about. Like they open a game store to support their family. I have a game that I think that they will enjoy, but they've got enough stuff on their plate right now that they don't need me bugging them. And I'm not doing this. Again, it's Eduardo Baraf said when I had a phone call with him at one point, he said, are you willing to make this a jobby? Because it's a hobby, but it's also very much a job.
A jobby. I love that.
And you're not going to likely make enough money doing self-publishing to make it a like full-time gig.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, that I see now what he was talking about.
Yeah.
But like also you were probably like challenge accepted.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like thinking from like a world-class designer perspective, like in the pre-show. So Chris, what you witnessed in the pre-show is you witnessed two designer types. I design systems for like productivity, process automation, and it's not exciting, but the process is very similar. And so what happened is we were actually riffing and we were asking what if questions, and we were actually like in real time completely changing the constraints over launching a successful product. And that's what you have to do. And so I suspect that when a world-class designer was told it's not going to work because there's one way to do it and no one's surviving, that's one of the reasons why the website is so amazing. And you can buy it directly from the website. And there are a number of things in the system that have been put together so that it is workable. But you're absolutely right about the Jobby thing.
Yeah.
But it's a worthwhile problem to solve, and there's so much opportunity.
Yeah.
And you have to change minds. You have to change constraints.
And I would challenge that your statement about what you do is not exciting. Because
yes, right. It's so exciting to me.
Designing systems and productivity.
Yes.
I mean, being able to help people make the most of the time that they have in a day. Think about how much more we could accomplish just as a world if everyone's day was structured and organized in a way that worked for them, but also maximized their productivity times. So like that's a really interesting challenge to be out there solving. And I feel like a lot of times people discount their creativity because there isn't art or
right, yeah,
a
it's
like physical
safe.
thing attached to it. And
it's
I would
not
say
safe to talk about either.
Yeah. And
similar to children a little while ago. Like it's not safe to talk about creativity and well, let's just check this out. Let's see what happens. Like
No, and it's been interesting now that you say that. Some of the in my day job, some of the trainings that I've done in the past, some of the best reception. I used to teach a rapid visualization class, so teaching people how to get their thoughts out on a whiteboard in a way that other people can interact with and understand it. The most engaged groups that we ever interacted with were people who considered their jobs to not be creative. And we just gave them a different tool and way to look at what creativity means within the context of something that they had ruled out as being creative. But I think that any advancement in any field requires you to build those creative muscles and apply it to the problem that you're trying to solve. So I see creativity as somewhat ubiquitous in its everybody has the ability to develop those skills given the right environment and tools to explore.
Yes.
And it's like at times I struggle with training because so I have a degree in furniture design. I could teach you how to use a tool, but I also want you to be able to see how you could use a tool differently, because that is actual creativity. I could teach you how to do one thing and you could do that over and over, but until you can take that context and apply it differently, that's when the magic really happens.
Very interesting. Yeah, I love that. And I'm assuming that applies to all kinds of tools, like an app, as not just a hammer kind of thing. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So why did you? I'm guessing the answer to this question is your experience in product design with Target led you to take those skills into publishing, right? That's why did you decide to go the self-publishing route, I guess?
Okay. So I went the self-publishing route because for me, when I don't know how to do something, it is very hard for me to articulate what to ask someone else to do.
Right.
And so I learn best by doing it myself at least once or twice. And so I recognized that there were so many things that I didn't know that going through it once, publishing myself, would give me a much better understanding of how all of the pieces fit together and what the current rules of that game are. And so I treated it as a game design or learning a game. From a self-publishing standpoint, what I didn't want to be constrained by was all of this has to fit into my life.
Right.
As my life currently is. And so being in control of my calendar as to when this happens and being able to shift it was hugely important to me. I also have a ton of deadlines in my career that I need to like fit it around. And so what I didn't want to do was have two sets of deadlines so that I felt like I was just working all the time. It also gave me a level of, so one of the benefits that I had was that I had the skills. I've amassed a wide variety of seemingly random skills over my lifetime.
That's called range, Joel.
Yeah, and I see. Yeah, I see it as board games is the culmination of all of my side quests in life. I'm a huge side quest person in video games.
Right.
And it is no different in my real life. Like I will do things, even when I have an impending deadline, I will take the time to do something else because it interests me, because it spins your brain into a different space and lets you not completely hyper focus on the problem that you're trying to solve and lets the pieces click in place while you're doing something else.
Right.
So I've taken many just random side quests in life doing things. And I find that board games is more and more often bringing all of those random bits together into one box. And so it was a chance to do a lot of things that I very much enjoy in a way that I enjoy them. So
go ahead.
I have I have a drawing degree. There's nothing more terrifying to me than a blank piece of paper and somebody saying, "Draw me something." And I'm like, "What do you want me to draw?" And them saying, "Whatever you want." I'm like, the sky is endless here. So that is not very helpful. And I had the benefit of going to San Diego Comic-Con one year and sitting down with some artists that I really admire and heard them say the same thing, that they only draw on the cheapest copy paper that they can find because they're too worried about ruining a sketchbook, or they're too worried about ruining a nice piece of paper. And that was something that I'd carried with me through all of art school, because it's like, art supplies are expensive. If you make a mistake, it's going to cost you a lot to fix that mistake. And so I always found myself wading in tentatively with my illustration. Once I switched to drawing on the iPad and it being digital illustration, it was way more freeing. And then going from there, I take it into Illustrator, which I've used my entire career, and I love it. And it lets me put it in a format that is easily replicable and that I can modify in other programs. But yeah,
very
sorry,
interesting.
that was like a random tangent.
No, that's good. It's very interesting. So, would you call your publishing that's a side quest? Like, would you describe that as your side quest, or do you think this is something you're going to continue doing full?
It is something that, it is definitely something that I am wanting to continue doing. As far as its designation as a side quest or not, still kind of TBD.
Okay,
I feel as though it's a parallel path that I can work on 2 quests at once.
Right. I love the idea of side quests. I'm very much like that. I've got a lot of side quests. Yeah. And I'm going to steal that phrase. I'm going to be calling all my little projects side quests.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a sweatshirt that I bought that says, I'm not procrastinating. It's a side quest.
It's a side quest. There you go. That's awesome. So
I'm looking for that shirt right now.
Have you, what kind of, this is sort of a weird question, how to get around it. I basically want to hear some stories about what it was like publishing during the pandemic. Was it negative? Was it positive? Was, like you said, it was the only thing you've known, but is it going to get better? Was it difficult, or was it really smooth sailing for you?
So I had a lot of things working in my favor. So when I tell this story and tell you what it felt like publishing during the pandemic, I just want to acknowledge that. So publishing during the pandemic, the hardest part was dealing with random factory shutdowns. As well
Panama Canal.
Panama Canal, exactly. And so it was the factory shutdowns, which I totally understand the reasoning for. It made it hard to make any sort of firm plan. And then the other big issue was the shipping on things and getting an accurate estimate as to when things would arrive. Again, I had a huge benefit in both of those regards. I was working with somebody that I knew. One of my friends does publish his own stationery. And so he had connections to factories that made puzzles and card games. And so that was an easy connection for me to make. I've since switched factories and gone to Longpack because they do specialize specifically in board games, and they've been wonderful to work with. So there was that working in my favor. Randomly, my next door neighbor through the alley works for an international freight company. And so I was able to pick his brain about what is the best way to figure this out, as well as there are a lot of board game designers and publishers in the Twin Cities, in and around the Twin Cities. And I met Michelle and John Nephew from Atlas Games at a local convention. So it was a Protospiel convention. We were playtesting things. And then I went and met them at a different convention, and John and I sat and talked about international shipping for an hour and a half. And just he has so much knowledge, and that's the thing that I would say about the board game industry that I would love to see in other industries is there is so much collaboration and openness and willingness to share both knowledge and of what's worked and then what was tried that didn't work quite as well. So I learned a ton from John in that regard. And so it was great starting during the pandemic because people had time that wasn't already filled. Like
Right.
it tossed everything into disarray and everyone was stressed out and everything was chaotic, but people were wanting to talk about things. And so it was really easy to have a really good conversation and feel like you weren't always imposing on someone else's time. And so I did it with a lot of help from a lot of people who have done this before me and were willing to share their mistakes with me. And I try and do that as much as I can when people find me at a produce wheel or come up to me at a convention and say, I have this idea for a game. Would you be interested in publishing it? I'll always have them send me the rules and the print and play. My dance card from a publishing standpoint is pretty full for the next 3 years. Like I've signed enough games that I have a mountain of art to do and just kind of pull everything together. But I'll always give them feedback on what I think was great about the game, what I think they could do interesting from a manufacturing standpoint, and just try and help people get their ideas off the ground as well.
Cool.
It's interesting you mentioned international shipping. Sorry, Chris. But like I'm wondering, so I went to the website and I can't get shipping of the games to Canada right now. And so like, where do you sell your games and like, how do you sell them? Like, how do you make that decision? Certainly during the whole plague situation. And like, where's the best place for a person to get any of the games?
Sure. So I'm going to take the opportunity to explain why you can't get them in Canada at the moment.
Sure, yeah.
I know, I'm bogus. So I was like, yo.
No, it's fantastic because I get that question from people a lot is like, why can't I get the game in my country? And the issue really comes down to the tax and reporting. So when you start designing a board game and get into the publishing, it was unclear to me how much logistics and paperwork from a taxes and reporting standpoint were going to be behind all of this. And so that is, at the moment, the reason that you can't buy from my website internationally is because I need to work through the tax and all of the tax paperwork to be registered in the EU. For the Kickstarter, I go through a company that's located in the UK, and they do all the European Union shipping for me. I ship everything to Canada and the rest of the world from Atlas in Duluth. But to do that on my website, I have to have all of the taxes and stuff buttoned up on the back end.
Right. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that they don't. Wasn't clear to me that I was going to have to learn as I was doing this on my own. And so that to me it's just a longer learning curve. And so it's one of those that I'm trying to work through. I'm also trying to find partners in all of these various places who are interested in carrying my games. But not one of the things that I try to be really conscious of is oftentimes when you grow and scale really quickly, you enter into that race to the bottom. And all of a sudden your price starts to go down and down as people discount to get through their inventory. And that's just not a place that I want to be right now.
Yes.
And so I've just avoided entering into that game because I want the games that I created to retain their value, at least in the short term. So that I can put together a plan of what does that expansion look like? How many of these am I, as a person, willing to put out into the world? Because again, I am not supporting my family doing this. It is extra income that makes Featherstone Games work. It lets me cover all of the convention costs, like pay to fly people in to like help with things. It is for me, the money that I make with Featherstone Games is a self-sustaining engine for a hobby that I very much enjoy, and a way in which I can continue to grow and support other people's creativity.
Nice.
So with that in mind, did I hear you correctly? You are not, Featherstone is also going to be publishing games designed by other people.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's in the future.
Yep. So Dinositters, which hasn't launched yet, is the first example of that. It's a collaboration between my friend Maxwell Freud and myself. It is an entry-level look at a game that he designed that is more complicated, but introduces pieces of it in a very understandable way. It's also aimed to be an entry-level worker placement game where every time you take an action, there's a very tangible, you move the points that you got for taking that action. And so what I love that it does is it makes tangible, invisible point systems. So I love playing Everdell.
Yep.
You don't score Everdell until after you're done with the third season. A lot of those points remain abstract until that scoring. And so I find it really hard to teach people who are less familiar with games how to play my favorite game because of the invisibility of that point system. And so what Dinositters is trying to do is make those worker placement actions very tangible and visible to everyone as you go. What I love about it is, I've played with all age of kids, but I got schooled by my son's friend because he saw a path to victory that was, he was taking a really short path to victory, and I was trying to set up a combo play, and he got to his before I ever got to my combo play. But then we played another game, and I made a giant combo play. And when I did that, he saw how my points tick up like 10 points. And he was like, oh, I get it now. And so we both learned something by playing two games.
Two different, two different strategies. Very cool. Now, with the exception of Dinositters, I'm noticing a real sort of philosophical approach to the games that you publish and how it sounds like you publish them. Like, both Open Oceans and Winterhaven Woods have sort of a very natural, I would almost say eco-friendly approach. How important is that to what you do and to Featherstone Games in general?
So to Myron's point earlier, theme is hugely important to me. In both Open Ocean and Winterhaven Woods, I tried to tie what the mechanics on the card did as closely as I could to what the animal in nature would do, or that you could conceivably understand that it would do, because then it after two games, it eliminates the need for the text on the cards, and younger players, once they have it explained once or twice, they commit that to memory and they understand how to play. And so they can, I've played with kids who have just very entry level reading. And so that's what I use the theme there for. The natural aspect of it, it's for me, it's something that a lot of people can relate to or have some experience with. Whereas when you go into like a high fantasy realm or a space realm, if it is not your interest, you may have avoided it, and it may be a reason not to play the game.
Right.
I'm not going to steer clear of those themes. Okay. I'm going to try and look at those themes through a different lens and make it even feel as though it's an entry into those themes as well with future games.
Right. So you on your website, you talk about using natural products like wood and that kind of thing, and is using as little plastic as possible.
Yep.
How much of an importance do you guys put on that?
It's really important to me personally, which is why it's the stance that I take is games are not a necessary item in life. There are necessary items in life that should be made out of plastic. But with something that is simply a leisure activity, I don't see a need to put additional plastic into the world. It really shifted for me when Open Ocean showed up from the factory, and I unwrapped and examined every single one of those games. Because in the first box that I opened, there were a lot of errors. And so I opened every single one of those. It is a very humbling experience to see the number of bags of plastic shrink wrap sitting around your basement as you're unwrapping these and then rewrapping them in shrink wrap so that you can send them to a store so that it won't get dirty on the shelf.
Right.
Or rewrapping it to send to a Kickstarter backer. And so I wanted to figure out a way to even eliminate that shrink wrap so that there wasn't that plastic waste in this. So I moved to using just a clear sticker to hold the magnetic box shut and then paper wraps on the cards. And everywhere I can, I use FSC certified materials. I am trying to, this past year at Gen Con, I met some really interesting people who are publishing in other countries that have more advanced paper alternatives that I'd like to explore in the future. You just get into a question of how much can I, at the end of the day, okay, let me rephrase this. The way that I think about a game and what it's worth is how much do I think that the experience that you're going to have with that game is worth it to you at your table. And so I try and price them as low as possible to make that accessible to more people because, I have like games that I've spent $100, $125 on.
Yeah.
My brothers and I have a copy of Gloomhaven. I went all in on Sleeping Gods. For me, those are collector experiences. I don't see my games as collector experiences. I want people to wear the backs off of the cards because they've played it so much. And I want them to not have to think about the fact that they can toss it in the recycling.
Mm-hmm. When they're done. Worn it out. Yeah,
exactly. I also don't want you to have to go through the process of sorting everything out. It would be great if you could just chuck it in the recycling.
Right.
Now, I just want to make a note because we're talking about materials and we're talking about like a number of the conversations that we've had today and when we met previously have been talking about like literally like, okay, what would it take to do that? And so I'm really interested in that. So like, if you're looking for thought partners, I'm currently in a very interesting state of having extra time, and I would love to think on how to solve that problem. I'm familiar with EDI. I've actually worked for a company that did e-commerce for Walmart, Kmart, Zales, Venture, and all that stuff back in the day. So like the technology side, like there are things that can be done, but I'm really interested in just taking like as Elon Musk says, a first principles look at every part of the process because I know there's a lot of opportunity. But you said wear the backs off of cards. Now, my autism, like my palms are hot and cold and sweating now again, and I don't know. I just like the idea of like taking a game like Lunacy, even though like my wife Anna has actually gotten a concussion from how like it was game time. But like even that game, the idea of the back being worn off and me going to recycle it, like talk of like do you use sleeves? Like how do we like what does the conscious person that lives on the burning planet do to help?
Yeah. I want to interrupt. Sorry, I think it's an interesting question. Like, I love the approach of Featherstones. It seems very natural. It seems very, eco-conscious and eco-friendly as much as you can be in the board game world. But sleeving it's a controversial topic in the board game world. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. And it's one that I personally struggle with, because by no means am I a saint in this. Like, I sleeve the majority of my Magic cards. I have tons of sleeves. I'm not like sleeve shaming or anything like that. What I would say is that when I think about a game, I think about the games that travel with our family from place to place, and they develop. We take them camping with us. We take them on road trips. They're small enough to travel, and so they do. And so it's the game that you have with you that you play. In my mind, that's what I want Featherstone Games to be, is a game that you're always willing to bring with you. Now, because, as you said earlier, the art looks really nice. There's this aversion, and on Winterhaven Woods especially, like, everything's white. So there's this aversion to like getting it dirty, or would I actually like toss this in my backpack and take it with me? So I definitely understand that. I would say that, in thinking about the Kickstarter, it was a $20 game. It included shipping and all of that. And, I know that Kickstarter backers oftentimes are collectors as well. And so that's hugely important to protect this game, because you don't know if you're ever going to get it again. My intent is to not have that be the case with any of my games, and just reprint them in smaller quantities as demand ebbs and flows for them. It was a real challenge on the first day of that campaign, having the sleeving conversation, because I designed the box to fit all of the cards in the expansion into the magnetic box in a tight enough way that things don't shift around and pop open the magnetic close. So it's a pretty tight fit. When I went to, somebody asked if it worked with sleeves, and I had thought about this because people asked about it with Open Ocean. To use conventional sleeves, I would need to increase the box height another 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch. If you use perfect fit sleeves, everything will fit in there as it is. And so that was just the question that I posed to players is it worth increasing the box 1/4 of an inch or 3/8 of an inch? It increases the cube on shipping, which increases the shipping cost. It increases the shipping cost to you on the back end, all of which I can't absorb all of it. I subsidize as much as I can from a Kickstarter standpoint, but I can't subsidize all of the shipping. And so, we had a conversation about it in the comments, and I said, my stance right now is, with the way the box is designed now, there is a solution for sleeving out there that works. I increased the size of the packaging on the expansion so that it would fit perfect fit sleeves as well. But you then have to store the two separately, which for some people is a big deal, because it's, they're small boxes. They don't necessarily fit on a collax in the most beautiful way. But people seemed okay with it. I'm always amazed, not always amazed, but I love when people take it upon themselves to solve their own problem that they have. And so it's been really interesting to watch people have laser cut boxes designed that accommodate all of the pieces of each of these games, or find an alternate solution with a deck box or something to keep all of the pieces together so that they can sleeve it. And nobody's been super demanding about, you definitely need to increase the box size. And I lost backers because of it. And
really?
I was very clear with them. I'm like, I understand that if that is really important to you, this would be a reason not to buy it. It's something that I am weighing and considering with each game moving forward is how do I accommodate that desire to sleeve with the hope that, because on the flip side of this, yes, sleeves have a single use, but they extend the lifetime of the game that you value and enjoy.
Right.
It protects it so that it can become an artifact of your existence and your interactions with other people. Like, I still have games in my collection that I dig out that my brothers and I played when we were kids, and we still play them. And it's great because, a game becomes an artifact of that experience that you had.
Right.
And so I understand the desire to protect that. I don't feel as though that's enough of a reason to make a decision to just accommodate sleeves, because it impacts every other part of the system as well. And so as a publisher, I'm always trying to weigh what is the best experience that I can give to players. Would they rather pay less for this game and not be able to sleeve it? Or would they rather pay more based on the increased? Can I absorb more as a publisher to increase the size? Like, what does it do to all of the things? So it's a complicated issue. And I would say that I see both sides of it.
Yeah, it's a tough, like, I imagine as a publisher, it's a tough series of decisions, right? You have to make your box small enough so that you are squeezing every penny out of it, so that you're not adding those costs on to your customers. You have to make sure it fits on everybody's shelves. Some gamers want all their boxes to be the same size. Some gamers want to keep the expansion box. Some people, the first thing they do is toss the expansion box. Some people want to have air in the box so that if in 3 years you come out with another expansion, I can put it in this box rather than having to get another one. So there is no simple fix for everyone. And sleeves is part of that, right? I mean, some people want sleeves, and if the box doesn't fit, they have to come up with their own solution. What I always do is I keep those expansion boxes and I repurpose them. So if I buy a game that if I've decided to sleeve it, and once I sleeve it, they no longer fit in the original box, I try to find an expansion box that holds the original box with the new sleeves, with the cards in their sleeves. Anyway, I want this is I know we're running out of time. We've taken you kind of long here, and we could continue talking about this forever. But what I want to do is I want people to be able to reach out to you, and I want them to find your games. So can you just give us some information about what you're working on now? Or
Sure.
What's next for you in Featherstone, and then please tell us, all your socials and your website address so that people can contact you and find your games.
Yeah, of course. So I'll start with what's next. What's next is Dinositters. We're looking at relaunching that campaign, likely early 2023. Just working through, again, box size and things like that, making sure that I understand. For me, it's making sure that I understand all of the ins and outs before asking anyone to part with money, because I want to make sure that I can deliver on exactly what I said that I was going to deliver on the timeline that I said I was going to deliver on. And that one, just when we first started it, just had too many unknowns that happened at the last minute. But Dinositters will come out later this year. Super excited for that. It is a lovely game. I am really excited for more people to start playing that. And then I've signed 3 other games, all kind of in that same vein of most of the time when I'm listening to pitches from designers, I listen for a story. Like, why did you do this? Like, why was it important to you to understand the motivations and the effort that has been put in? And so each of the ones that I've signed has a really cool, interesting story behind it as to why someone wanted to create this game. And I played them and I love them, and they fit into my ethos of small box game, sub 30 minutes, easy to teach. So I have some stuff in the pipeline for that. People reach out to me.
I love that, Mitch.
It's a fun place
Just
to
give
be.
me the language to define what I need.
Right.
So, Chris, what could play?
Yeah, and so to your point, those are the types of games that I enjoy playing and that I have time to play in my life right now. So I can relate to the people who are in similar situations and hopefully design a solution to fit into that time that you have available and the people that you're playing with. Let's see where you can find me. I am at Featherstone Games on Instagram, Facebook. Those are the only social channels that I'm on.
Okay.
I would say that I'm most active on the Instagram community. So anyone can feel free to reach out to me, send me a direct message. I love talking to people about games. And then from a website standpoint, it's featherstonegames.com. You can order the games directly from me. They're also available on Amazon. I'm the only person selling them on Amazon, so that also goes back directly to me. From a pricing standpoint, you'll notice two different prices, and that's something that I'd love to explain to people. I charge less on my website for it because there are a lot of fees associated with the convenience that you get on Amazon.
Sure.
And I price it so that people with a Prime membership can get free shipping. If you buy it on my website, it works out to be exactly the same. It's just more of the money goes directly to me. And so I offer it at a lower cost so that you're getting the exact same value proposition.
Right. And your games are available at some of the FLGS, some of the local game stores. Myron just sent me a message in our chat saying it's available at the store that we met, Board Game Bliss, which is still my FLGS that I consider it, even though I've moved away. Both.
Yeah,
Open
they have like
Ocean,
4. They have 4 in stock right now.
Yeah, Open Ocean
of
is
Open Ocean
in stock, and Winterhaven Woods looks like they're out of stock. So I'll have to. I'm going to put one of those little notify me when back in stock things.
Let's throw some pressure. Let's throw some pressure in there.
Throw some pressure on the people at Bliss so that I can get a copy. But that's great. Joel, thank you so much. I feel like we could do a podcast on just publishing games and all the trials and tribulations of doing that, because
interesting
and the fun parts.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Myron's all in there. We're
we're going to be talking this weekend, and
maybe
that would almost be like the perfect thing for us to unite around.
Right.
Yeah, and I would say that every small publisher and big publisher, for that matter, has a story about that that they can share. And I have benefited so much from hearing other people's stories of things that they felt like they did well. Like, I love when people phrase advice to me as, here's what worked for me. It might not be the same for you, because it then lets me make the decision as to whether or not that's a path that I go down. And, they're just, again, the board game industry is super collaborative from the standpoint of getting people information, being willing to help. If you're thinking about publishing a game, for anyone out there, I would say just be thoughtful about the amount of time that you're asking for someone, and come with a somewhat focused question. There's a lot to learn. And there are a lot of resources out there that you can learn it on your own. So when coming to someone, have a focused question that they can help you with, because it takes a long time to describe all of the parts of the process. That's
good advice. Yeah, that's really good advice.
4-hour conversation.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. The board game industry is incredibly helpful in so many ways. Not just from, I'm a designer, well, how can I get my game published? Or I'm a publisher and I want to self-publish, how can I do it? But like I've talked to designers and just said, out of curiosity, I don't have any interest in designing a game. I certainly don't have any interest in publishing a game, but just out of interest in what's the process for pitching a game. And I feel like, on 24 occasions I've gotten like a little TED talk on how to do that, you know, and that's not me complaining about the length of time. It's a genuine interest in it. And, you know, their willingness to share their information is quite shocking and surprising.
Yeah.
But on that note, I think we should leave the show. I want to thank you again so much for agreeing to be on the show. We wish you all the best with your games. We both Myron and I will be on the hunt with them and look to playing them. And I look forward to seeing more about Dinositters. I love the photo that I've seen somewhere. I think it might be on your website of the components. They look cute, adorable. Definitely something for me with my kid at heart on the inside. That's the kind of game that really appeals to me. Colorful dinosaurs, I'm in. But thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Joel. Yeah, it's been dope. Like, consider yourself a friend of the show, man. This has been awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Board Game Chats with Chris and Myron. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, check out their website at boardgamechats.com, or drop them an email at boardgamechats@gmail.com. You can also find Board Game Chats on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.